societies depended on the regulation of dangerous water flows. And that required a strong state which imposed on people the obligation to maintain the water system. So the nature of the system was such that maintenance was absolutely critical, and the criticality of maintenance led to despotism. Quite a strong argument. We've had actually similar arguments in the not-so-distant past around nuclear power. The problem with nuclear power is precisely that it's so dangerous that it has to be regulated, maintained with an extraordinary ferocity. And that ferocity implies diminution of civil liberties. It's what has been called authoritarian techniques rather than democratic techniques. And so maintenance is not all good. And maintenance has been a focus for a certain kind of reflection on a certain kind of dark side of not just modernity, but of the past. So it's not necessarily a good thing, is what I'm saying. In a world where aeroplanes can fall out of the air or cities can be flooded, rigid order might be called for. And I think it's not accidental that many of our dystopian novels are set in futures without technical change, but a profound necessity to maintain the system, to maintain the status quo. And Terry Gilliam's Brazil seems to me to be the ultimate film about maintenance in many different dimensions. But there's a wonderful irony at the heart of maintenance. It is there to retain order, to recreate order, and yet it depends on tacit knowledge. It depends on understanding of uncertainty. It depends on flexible reactions to changes which are unpredictable. Maintaining an aero engine is something that people learn to do not from a manual, but from their experience of maintaining engines. So the same engine at the beginning of its life will need to be maintained every, 1,000 cycles. At the end of its life, it maintains much less, at least in terms of overall time, because people learn how to do it. So it has this kind of very human, very intuitive side of maintenance, also this very bureaucratic side as well. Now, why don't we see maintenance as an absolutely routine, interesting, challenging feature of our societies? Well, it's partly, I think, because we increasingly have a very poor sense of the material constitution of our world. When we think of stuff, we think in a deluded, futuristic way about it. We think of our present and future as being weightless, as machinery being essentially tech. We live in a kind of new ether of digital innovation. Indeed, we are encouraged to pride ourselves on all being innovators and entrepreneurs. Everyone's CV makes a claim to be innovative in one aspect or another. It is expected in professional development. Creative destruction is what masters of the universe do best. Maintenance, conservation is definitely for losers. However, there is nothing innovative about most so-called innovators. There is little that is entrepreneurial about most so-called entrepreneurs. What we have in the modern world is a quite extraordinary amount of imitation rather than innovation. And one of the key instances of that seems to me the way we imitate the idea that we are all innovators. There is no more tediously overused word in the globe today than innovation. And what I mean by we live in an unprecedentedly imitative world. Well, for example, there are something like 200 iPhones made every year. We all have to use iPhones in exactly the same way. We might want to compare that with a Model T Ford, you think of as being the ultimate kind of mass-produced, routinized product. Well, there were never more than just over 15 million Model Ts ever created. The iPhone is built some of the iPhones are built in a factory far bigger than Henry Ford ever dreamt of running. Ours is the age of mass production of imitation. Never in human history have so many done exactly the same thing over such a stretch of time and space. But, of course, there is the real world, a real material world, where the old is actually hugely important. There are bits of that material world where people are designing machines that are supposed to run for many decades. For example, the F-35 aeroplane that was designed many years ago is not yet in service with the British forces, and once it is, if it is, it will be in service for decades. And this would have been unthinkable in the 19th century. You've got to go back to the 18th century to see people planning to operate machinery for quite that length of time. But there is another way in which this material world, the world of maintenance, is coming back into our everyday understanding, and that is through Brexit. Suddenly, all that talk of living in a dematerialized world with electrons whizzing about becomes irrelevant as we start talking about supply chains in food, in energy markets across the island of Ireland, supply chains in motor cars. I mean, this is so retro, so last century. And note also that the conflation of making and maintaining is now at the very centre of British politics. Because what the British government wants to do with the so-called Chequers plan, it's actually a proposal, better a dream, a fantasy, is to separate out the question of the regulation of goods and the regulation of services. But people who know about this stuff immediately turn around and say there is no such separation possible. Maintenance and making go together in the modern world. Your plan is simply not going to fly. So we live in a world of bullshit, not least in the realm of Brexit, but there are really hard realities that against which the bullshit eventually has to come up against. And maintenance is one of those. And we've heard already very eloquently what happens if we don't attend to the centrality of maintenance in our real world. Thank you very much.